So in this section, we are going to discuss about the history taking and the case examination. When you get a case actually in your vivas or your final exams, so you get a short case or you get a long case, how to actually start or how to fill your case sheets while you are going to your wards. Okay, because you know, when you are going to the wards, one important thing that you have to do is filling up the case sheet. So you have to take it very seriously, and there is a, you know, a typical format of history taking, and if you are going that way, not only it will make your case sheet more systematic, easy to read, that will impress your examiner. This will also help you to develop a clinical acumen, that when you get a patient, at what speed, what pace, and what order actually you should proceed asking the questions. See, when you actually interact with the patient, it is actually, you know, a process, and if you want your patient that he or she should cooperate with you till the end of your history taking and the examination, it's very important that you develop a rapport with the patient. Now, can we develop a rapport with the patient without knowing each other? So that rather sounds very tough. And obviously, in order to know each other, knowing the personal details are pretty important. So to start with, you have to first tell your name to the patient. Now, I always feel that before asking the patient's name, it's important that you introduce yourself to the patient, because it is you who is actually going to examine the patient, interact the patient. It is you that actually requires the patient's cooperation in order to get your case sheet or your case or your ward leaving, anything. Okay, so that is why it's important that you first introduce yourself to the patient. Okay, tell the patient who you are, whether you are a student or intern, whatever it is. Okay, tell your name, tell your designation, and tell the patient that he has to actually, you want his or her cooperation. Okay, for some time. So then once you know you have introduced yourself to the patient, patient feels, you know, rather confident, you know, tend to develop a familiar attitude towards you, because obviously when you go in the government setups, one single patient has to suffer, I can say, a trauma kind of a thing, telling the same thing to so many people. Once when the patient is admitted, the staff will be asking the same question, then consultant will be asking, junior doctors, senior doctors, JRs, SRs, and then comes the students. So obviously the patient may get frustrated and irritated at times, and patient may not be that cooperative. So you have to, you know, start with a warm environment. And a warm environment does not mean, I'm not talking about the temperature, I'm talking about the coziness. So the patient should be feeling comfortable. You have to develop a rapport, and once you have introduced yourself, then start asking the patient's name, the age, okay, address. And it's also good that if you talk to the patient in the local language. I think when you are talking to the patient in the local language, it's always easier to gain the confidence of the patient. Okay, we cannot be very familiar to the patient whenever we are talking in official language. Official language, like for us, the official language is typically English. So we may be discussing the case amongst ourselves in English. You may be presenting your case in front of the consultant in English, but I won't say that talk to your patient in English. Okay, unless you don't know the language of the patient, and language barrier is there, and the only common language between the two of you is English, then it's okay. But otherwise, talk to the patient in the local language wherever you are, and try to be, very, very comfortable with the patient. Don't show that you are a level higher, or you are a doctor, because patient is already, sad. Nobody is happy about coming to the hospital, and that is why you have to be, sympathetic towards the patient. You have to ask the name of the patient, and then you have to ask the age of the patient. Now, why age is important? We all know that certain diseases are common in the young age group, certain diseases are common in the elderly age group. So if, for example, if I give you example of vitreous hemorrhage, so we know that in young age the recurrent vitreous hemorrhage occurs due to the Eales disease. In the elderly age group, it occurs due to the PDR, proliferative diabetic retinopathy, while in children it can be due to the trauma, it can be due to the battered baby syndrome. So obviously age is important, and then we move towards the address. Looking towards the address, why we want the address? See, the staff has already taken the address because we have to prepare the case sheet, but again the address is important because we have to know that from which area this patient has come. Certain diseases are endemic, we can have trachoma there, okay. So you definitely want to know. This will also help you in knowing that what is the culture of the patient, what is the race of the patient, to which area he is belonging, what will be the local language of the patient, right? So all these things will help you in actually gaining the confidence, making a rapport with the patient and talking to the patient, communicating with the patient. Then you have to also enter the gender. So obviously you will come to know while you are talking male or female. And again, there are certain diseases which may be more common in males, there are certain diseases which may be more common in females, or they can be equitable distribution also. Like if I talk about the angle closure glaucoma, that is more common in females. If I talk about the CSR, that is more common in males. If I talk about the CRAO, it's more common in males. So likewise, if I talk about the diabetic retinopathy, so females have more chances of developing the diabetic retinopathy. So obviously gender plays an important role. Now heading towards the other things, we will have to look for the ethnicity, because you already know that many diseases are common in Asians, certain things are common in the Jews, certain things are common in the Mongols. So races also makes a lot of difference, and it's important to note down that which race the person is belonging to. Now after you have gone for the ethnicity, then you have to look for the occupation of the patient. There are so many occupational hazards. If I talk about the ophthalmology, cataract is very common, and cataract can occur from so many of the occupational hazards. We can have the iron foreign body, we can have the what you called as the nickel exposure, the mercurial exposure. Then we can have the welding arcs. Those who are working at the welding arcs, they can have exposure to the ultraviolet radiations. We can have exposure to the infrared radiations, and they can develop the glass blowers cataract. We can have the chisel and hammers, very, very small chips of the iron foreign bodies could be there, those who are working in the iron factory. So obviously, right, so we have a lot of things that are actually related to the occupation. Certain types of cataracts, certain types of foreign bodies, we can have the keratopathies. So this becomes important. Now after this, you have to go for the religion. Going for the religion, see, again, certain diseases will be common in a particular religion. You all know that certain diseases are less common, like we all know that in Muslims and Jews, there is the tendency of the circumcision, and due to which they have less tendency of certain diseases. So obviously knowing the religion of the patient is again important, and plus the religion is also important because you will come to know that what are the things you should not um, say to them, because unintentionally you may say certain things which may actually hurt the patient. So in no way we want to actually hurt the patient, okay. Patient is our priority. Then going with the marital status, Knowing the marital status is of you know, great value in the other branches also, whether if I am talking of the OBG, whether the patient is a virgin or she's married, okay, if I am interested in STDs. Then similarly, knowing the marital status, if I talk about the ophthalmology, then we can say how many people will be there to take care, what is the you know, kind of work she is to, what is the you know, personality of the patient if you are dealing with these psychiatric illnesses. Then what kind of you know, responsibilities she is having. If she is coming for the cataract surgery, will she be able to come one day before? So all these things you'll get to know from the marital status. Then you also come to know about her you know, socioeconomic status. Obviously we have to look at the affordability range of the patient also, especially you know, when we give her a choice for choosing the type of intraocular lenses. So there is no one thing which I say that it is the best. Okay, the best is actually a very hypothetical word that we get in the books, that this is the best, but the best may not be the best for this patient. She may not be able to afford it, and there are so many things. So you should get to know that also. Then we have to note the date of examination. Okay, whenever you are preparing the case sheet for our records, we should have this thing, that what was the first day when she was examined, so that you could get to know how the things are progressing. Okay, and whenever she's coming for follow-up, then also you can get back to the reports, what was the status that day and what is the status today. Now once you have done with all these you know, history and the personal details, next important thing that comes is your chief complaints. Now you have to be very, very specific. What is actually chief complaints? Chief complaints means what actually brought the patient to you or to the OPD, because patient may be having you know, 100 of other problems also, but they may not be so significant that will bring the patient to the OPD. So you will find certainly that there are you know, one or two chief complaints, or at the most three chief complaints, which are actually responsible for bringing the patient to you. Okay, so you have to be very, very specific when you are writing the chief complaints. You have to ask the patient that why did he or she visited the OPD. Okay, so obviously you will find out that there were so many things which were going on from a year or 2 or 6 months, but now suddenly something happened which actually precipitated the complaints, or something happened which was unbearable, which was sudden, which was you know, very much painful, or something like this, which is actually you know, urged the patient to come to the OPD. So you have to write the chief complaints, and you have to be very, very cautious about it, that when you are writing the chief complaints, they should not be more than 3, and even I will say that they should not be more than 2. There must be only 1 or 2 chief complaints, because if you start writing everything there, okay, then you will actually be lost and you won't know what are the main complaints of the patient and what is actually to be sorted out. Now once you have written the chief complaints, then you have to go to the history of present illness. So whatever are the chief complaints, you have to go back in the flashback and you have to see that from where the complaint started, the history of present illness. So it's always good that you go to that time where he was not having any significant problem. So you start from there. Maybe you can say that the patient was absolutely fine 20 days back, patient was absolutely fine 10 days back, or patient was absolutely fine 1.5 months before. So you have to take it something like this. Then suddenly he started having this, or he may be having, or she may be having gradual diminution of vision, but suddenly there is you know, worsening of the symptoms, there is sudden painless diminution of vision, or there was a trauma, or there was history of exposure to something, or there was a injury from the animal tail, or the injury from the vegetative matter, or she was fine and suddenly she start having the discomfort in her contact lenses, so something like this. So you actually have to go to that final date up to which she or he was fine and started having the problems. Always maintain the chronicity. So when you are writing the chief complaints also, you have to start with the oldest one and then you have to gradually come to the nearer one. So if I am having 3 problems, one is 3 months ago, then another is 1.5 and then 20 days. So first I will write the one that was 3 months, and I'll write 1.5 months, and then I'll write the 20 days one. And similarly, when I write the history of present illness, again you have to go in the same order. Go back, then you have to tell, okay, how the onset took place, whether it was a sudden onset or it was a gradual onset, whether it was painful or it was painless, or it was more in during the daytime, more during the night time, what all other things happened with it, what are the associated symptoms, okay, all these things you have to write. Then after you have explained everything in detail about the chief complaints, about the history of present illness, then you have to go for the past medical history. Now this is again very important. Don't think that being an ophthalmologist, why I am concerned about the past medical history if he is operated for appendix, or what if she is operated for uterus. So everything is interlinked, okay, the person is being totally. So in one way or the other you should know all these things. There might be any history of allergy, there might be any history of drug allergies, there might be any history of any surgery being done, any anaphylactic shock, any chronic history of diabetes, hypertension, thyrotoxicosis, or any history of being on ATT, because there are so many diseases which are related with the tuberculosis. We have got the Eales disease also, follicular keratoconjunctivitis, we have got the Koeppen nodules, any history of immunocompromise, any history of HIV related, any history of STDs, gonorrhea is always there, any history of toxoplasmosis, neurocysticercosis, any history of Behçet's, there are so many cases where the ocular complications do occur, or the ocular manifestations do occur in the systemic diseases. And nowadays there are so many questions which are asked, there are so many ocular side effects of systemic drugs. So maybe the patient is of rheumatoid arthritis, he or she is on chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, okay, and maybe coming for the bullseye maculopathy. Patient maybe of the spring catarrh, maybe on the steroids, maybe developing the glaucoma. So there are so many things which are important. Systemic inquiry, as I told you, you have to ask about every single thing. I must say that taking a good and elaborative history is an art, and you will acknowledge one thing, that when we as a students or interns take the history is slightly less as compared to the history which is being elicited by the consultant. So they also know that whom to tell. So this is actually a skill. You have to get out the information, take the information from them. You have to take extract the information. So it depends upon you how much information you are able to extract. Then comes your family history. So family history is again important. Glaucoma is notorious for running in the families. We can have congenital glaucoma, we can have congenital cataracts, the gene mutations can be there. We can have the gene mutations in the open angle glaucoma, the optineurin, myocilin. So there are so many diseases where you will get family history, especially if I talk about the retinitis pigmentosa. Okay, so this is important. Then you have to monitor, you have to mention every single drug the patient has ever taken or is on, because if the patient is on the antihypertensives, patient may be on antidiabetics or thyroid drugs and all. So when you are going to operate on the patient, you have to see which all drugs have to be given on the day of surgery, because maybe the patient has missed the antihypertensive and the BP has shooted up, and you will have to cancel or postpone the case on that day. So you have to tell the patient that you have to continue with the antihypertensives on that day, or the patient may be on ecosprin, patient may be on the aspirin. So you will have to tell that before taking the anesthesia whether patient should stop the drugs or should take the drugs, for how much time he or she should stop the drug. So all this stuff is very, very important. And then comes the social history. Social history, any, history of contact, or any history of any other communicable diseases in that area. So obviously, health is the complete physical state of physical well-being, mental well-being, social well-being, emotional well-being. So you have to take the history at every of the aspect. Now coming to the chief complaints. Now let's be very specific. What can be the chief complaints? What are the complaints we are going to sort and look about in our patient, being ophthalmology patients? Sometimes you have to give the leading questions also. Patient may not be able to tell you all the complaints. Maybe patient is having that complaint and he may not be telling you that one. So because they may be having a low level of education, they may be having the low IQ, they may be not educated. So every time you may not expect that they will tell you each and every symptom, because they may not be finding it relevant to tell you. So you have to ask about the defective vision. I think they will tell you about the defective vision, because each time a patient is always concerned about the vision. Then if there is any watering, if there is any discharge, if they are telling you discharge, then you also have to ask them what kind of discharge it is, a mucoid discharge, a purulent discharge, a watery discharge. Now they will not say that it is a mucoid discharge, they will say it's a sticky discharge. You will have to ask the leading questions, whether the eyelids get stick or not, whether there is any matting of the eyelashes. So you will have to ask. Then you will have to ask about the crusting. You will have to ask about the yellowishness. You will have to ask whether there is a matting of the eyelids when the patient is awakened in the morning. So you have to ask whether there is some difficulty in opening the eyes when the patient gets up in the morning, whether there is some redness. Then ask about the asthenopic symptoms. Very often patients are not correlating these asthenopic symptoms with the ocular symptoms. They may be having a eye strain, a headache, heaviness is there, but they are not relating it with the ocular symptoms. Then photophobia. Now photophobia is the fear of light. That is actually a painful sensation. So more often than not, if there is a corneal involvement, there is usually the photophobia. So if the patient is saying that yes, I do get some painful sensations when I go in the light, then that means there's a photophobia. Look for the corneal involvement. Maybe it's a keratitis. If it's a trauma, it could be sympathetic ophthalmitis. It could be congenital glaucoma in the small children, so it could be there. Then next we can go for the burning sensation. Now if there is something which is related with the allergy, always we will have itching, we will have burning sensation, there could be foreign body sensation, there could be grittiness, there could be actually foreign body which has gone in, inside the eye. It may be pain. Now either it can be a true pain or it can be a discomfort. You also have to ask the patient that whether the feeling or the sensations that the patient is having is actually pain or it is just the discomfort, because from this also you get a clue. See, pain will never occur in conjunctivitis, it will only be a discomfort. But if the patient is having a pain, that means there is the nerve involvement, there is a neural involvement, and cornea will be there. If there is a headache and if the patient notices some deviation of the eye. Now at times the patient may say that I have not seen, because obviously patient may not have noticed, but others do tell that ki eye tirchi ho gayi hai and the eye is deviated. So you have to ask, you have to sometimes give the leading questions also. Then the diplopia. Okay, ask for the diplopia, and if the diplopia is there, okay, you can also ask. If the patient says yes, there is a diplopia, you have to actually explain to the patient what do you mean by diplopia and what he or she is perceiving as diplopia. Maybe he is giving you a wrong impression. Okay, so you have to tell what is actually diplopia. Even if the patient is closing one eye, then also he is seeing two, so you have to tell the patient. Then if there is a real diplopia, whether it's a diplopia or it's a polyopia, it's a uniocular diplopia or it's a binocular diplopia, you have to be very, very clear. Then if there is any history of black spots, floaters. Floaters are very important. They could be in high myopia, they could be in the vitreous hemorrhage, they could be in intermediate uveitis, they could be in posterior uveitis, they could be in the retinal detachment, they could even be in the cataract. So floaters are again important. Then ask about the colored halos, because you know most of the patients are either cataract and glaucoma, and both of them can give me the colored halos. The cataract can give me colored halos, even the angle closure glaucoma will give me a colored halos. So if I am getting a colored halos, this will help me in, you know, converging out my diagnosis, and I get a clue that what kind of a patient I am dealing with. Then distorted vision. So there is again a difference between the defective vision, blurring of vision, diminution of vision, distortion of vision. Distorted is the one that signifies that there is macular involvement. Macular involvement means metamorphopsia. Then you'll start thinking in terms of macular hole, macular degeneration, depending upon the age of the patient, depending upon history, depending upon infrared radiation exposure, CSR, CME. So you think about those things. Now once you have done with the chief complaints, now you have to move on to history of present illness. History of present illness, first of all, a very important thing is what was the mode of onset, okay, whether it was gradual, whether it was sudden, chronic, acute, you have to ask this. Because if you remember, every time we do read anything, I always say that this is gradual, painless, progressive diminution of vision, this is sudden painful diminution of vision, this will cause sudden painless. So that forms a very important differential diagnosis and a very important clue that in which direction I have to think. Patient is having gradual, painless, progressive diminution of vision. There are separate range of diseases that I am going to think. I am going to think about cataract, I am going to think about the open angle glaucoma, not the angle closure. I am going to think about the pterygium, I am going to think about the astigmatism, I am going to think about the macular degenerations. These are the things, diabetic retinopathy I can think. Then you have to ask about the severity. How much severe it was, means severity will tell you that how much actually the severe disease it is, what kind of disease it could be. Like always, if I compare between the keratitis and the conjunctivitis, there is no, you know, comparison. Obviously keratitis is much more severe than conjunctivitis. So is it a episcleritis, a scleritis, a uveitis, a keratitis, a conjunctivitis, whether it is painless, whether it is painful, whether it is more during the day, whether it is more during the night, okay, is there any idea of progression, is how is it progressing, whether it seems to be stationary from that time, or you are feeling that in the last days it has now progressed much, which has brought you to the doctor there, and is if there is any accompaniment of these symptoms, is there anything else also that you want to mention. You have to ask this patient anything else that is actually bothering you, that is causing discomfort or, you know, irritating you. So you have to ask this also. Alright, now next we come to the history of past illness. Now history of past illness is again important, especially if I talk of certain diseases, certain conditions which are recurrent. So I'll get to know that if this happened, obviously there are chances that it being having the recurrent lesion. A very common example is a viral keratitis. Viral keratitis, it can be herpes simplex keratitis, it can be herpes zoster keratitis, recurrent corneal erosions, it could be dystrophies, it could be uveitis, we can have recurrent uveitis, we can have recurrent vitreous hemorrhage. So I'll get to know and I'll be prepared that what kind of pathology can occur in the patient. You know that the viral keratitis, may the viruses are remaining dormant in the trigeminal ganglions, in the glycerin ganglions, and there are always chances that they being coming up. So you have to ask this. Okay, then you also have to see that whether the patient is having a similar complaint in the other eye also. If it is a unilateral or if it is a bilateral, if it's a bilateral condition, then which eye is affected more? Okay, you have to ask the patient that which eye is causing more problem. Like if I talk about the cataract, so which eye is having more problem? So obviously that will form a criteria for me being operating that eye first. I'll operate if I want to operate both the eyes. Okay, both the eyes are having cataract, so I will take the help of the patient. I'll ask the patient that which eye is causing more problem. Obviously that will be the eye that I'll be operating. Then I'll have to see what all are the conditions that are usually bilateral. It could be uveitis, it could be cataracts, senile cataract, it could be RD also, it could be CSR also. So there are certain things, most of the degenerations are bilateral, be it the pterygium, the pinguicula, the age-related macular degenerations. Then if there is any history of surgery, so surgery ki if you are taking the history, you have to ask both. Any general history also, general surgeries, any hysterectomy, oophorectomy, any mastectomy, any appendectomy if it is a male, anything, cholecystectomy, and then you have to ask about the eye surgeries also. Maybe the patient is having was having a bilateral cataract and for one eye he's already been operated. Okay, then you have to ask that which eye is left. Then you have to ask about the drugs. I told you before also that there are so many drug associated diseases that could be there in the eye. So obviously you have to look into it, and you will have to actually make a provisional diagnosis based on all these things. What is the age of the patient, what is the gender of the patient, what is the background of the patient, what is the occupational hazard if he or she is exposed to, how many eyes are involved, how was the onset, how much was the progression, any associated symptoms, unilateral, bilateral, all these things have to be taken care of. Then the next important thing is the family history. Family history is again important. It could be, family, running in the families, as we can have congenital cataracts, it could be ptosis, we can have the squints, the dystrophies. Glaucoma is very, very notorious for running in the families. Refractive errors, especially the high myopia, the pathological myopia, the retinitis pigmentosa. So this will help me in making a clue, this will help me in counseling the patient about the prognosis, this will help me in actually thinking about how much progression would be there, how rapidly it will progress, how rapidly I should treat the disease, what is actually usual prognosis, should other patients or other members of the family be also screened. Asking about all these things is very, very important when you are analyzing the cases which actually runs in families. Now next you have to ask about the defective vision. Now when you are asking about the defective vision, you have to see whether it is gradual or whether it is sudden. Now you have to also see whether it is associated with pain or not. So it is painless or painful. So it can be sudden painful, sudden painless also. We can have gradual painless and gradual painful also. I think you must be knowing the different kinds, and I would like you to write all the options in the comment section, because these are the questions that you could be asked in your vivas. What are the DDs of sudden painless, sudden painful, gradual painless, gradual painful? Is the patient having night blindness, or the patient is having the day blindness, clumsy vision during the day, clumsy vision during the night? See, I have given you a hint where all you people hear these things, and whether the patient is having a problem at a near vision only, or if the patient is having a problem in far vision only. Like we could be having the refractive errors too, we could be having a problem in accommodation, we could be having a problem in the optic nerve. So likewise we will be having different kind of defective vision. So this was the complete history, how to start the history, starting from making a rapport with the patient and going about all the important points that you should actually see, and while you are presenting the case, while you are formatting your case sheet, all these all these things should be seen very, very properly. And I think if you go in this systematic manner, this is going to help you a lot, and you are going to rock in your vivas and the word postings. So this is all for your history taking, and I'm planning to do a session on ocular examination also, in which I'll be helping you that how to do the examination, what should be the order that we should go. Please tell me in the comment section that do you really want that session on ocular examination? How do you like this session of clinical history taking, and what all other things, what are the other things that you want me to make the videos on? And if you like the video, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also do share the video as much as you can. Thank you, and happy ophthalmology.